Hi friends, welcome to the NPTEL course Leadership for India Inc. Practical Concepts and Constructs. We are in week 12 discussing legendary leadership. In this lecture, that is lecture number 61 of ours, we will focus on Mahatma Gandhi. He provides us leadership beyond compare. I do this lecture very respectfully and very reverentially to one of the greatest leaders of all time in the mankind. Mahatma Gandhi is a leadership inspiration for generations. This series of lectures on Leadership for India Inc. concludes with a focused study of the life of Mahatma Gandhi, the unparalleled leader of leaders from a leadership perspective. Without doubt, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, 1869 to 1949, popularly and reverentially referred to as Mahatma Gandhi or Bapuji, is the greatest leader India has ever produced. His birthday on October 2 is celebrated respectfully each year as Gandhi Jayanti in India by the government and people. One could do many things in life to become a good leader with a materialistic purpose, but one needs to only follow and implement the teachings from the life of Mahatma Gandhi to become a great leader with an immensely fulfilling socio-economic purpose. He is the quintessential leader. Mahatma Gandhi has no parallel as a leader, nationally or internationally. Humble and simple to the core, he led by example a whole nation, that is India, on the resolute path of independence. Mahatma Gandhi was both a transformational leader and a transactional leader whose knowledge covered a whole range of domains. Gandhi was highly principled and value based in whatever he preached and executed. He could inspire the elite as effectively as he could sway the masses. The 10 facets of Mahatma Gandhi's leadership model comprise an exemplary set. These, together and holistically, constitute a model of humanistic leadership that is integrated and unparalleled. Mahatma Gandhi's principles of empathetic humanism and the transformational leadership he embodied transcend all domains. The 10 facets of Mahatma Gandhi's leadership model have been interpreted by me based on the life and works of Mahatma Gandhi. These cover the multiple dimensions of self, society, nation, processes, and people, to quote a few dimensions. These 10 facets will be described and interpreted in terms of their universality as we proceed on this lecture. Mahatma Gandhi was a transformational leader. From a business leadership perspective, a transformational leader needs to have substantially all of the 30 leadership attributes which I have proposed to you as part of this course. And these must be implemented contextually in terms of the 10 leadership models which also I propose to you as part of this course. Gandhi's life demonstrates that a few simple but powerful principles such as truth, humility, empathy, caring, compassion, resoluteness, conviction, commitment, equality, and equity made him a transformational leader. We are all aware of Albert Einstein, the greatest scientist on earth. He said of Mahatma Gandhi, "Generations to come will scarce believe that such a one as this walked the earth in flesh and blood." Mahatma Gandhi lived by values, led by example, became one with people. Mahatma Gandhi took a stand always based on truth and love for peace and happiness. In the process, he won over even the staunchest of skeptics in his relentless march for India's independence. Mahatma Gandhi was an inclusive leader. He was both a transformational leader and a transactional leader, whose knowledge and wisdom covered a whole range of domains, including public welfare, politics, economics, history, science, technology, religion, spirituality, and philosophy, to mention just a few. What distinguished Gandhi was that he was highly principled and value based in whatever he preached and executed. As a result, he could transform the elite as effectively as he could inspire the masses. Mahatma Gandhi was a truly original thinker who brought amazing concepts such as nonviolence, fasting, and self governance to center stage nationally as well as internationally. Mahatma Gandhi was phenomenal in terms of his writings. He was a prolific writer. Apart from penning his autobiography and other important books, he wrote thousands of letters and papers on varied subjects and matters. Every one of his works sheds light on his spiritual, political, and humanistic leadership. I have presented to you some of the important works of Mahatma Gandhi. My Life is My Message, M.K. Gandhi. His works covered 98 volumes, 50,000 pages of writings. All of Gandhi's works were principle and people oriented, driven by sharp intellect, clear logic, and helpful wisdom, appropriate for all sections of society. Mahatma Gandhi offered to us several learned lessons. It is impossible to select the books by Mahatma Gandhi that distill the best of his thoughts. Each of his works has several messages that are relevant to social, political, spiritual, economic, and human behavior. Gandhi's autobiography ends in the late 1920s, several historic years before his assassination in 1948. The book Gandhi seeks to fill that void left by Gandhi himself. Edited by Gopal Krishna Gandhi, his grandson, the book tells Gandhi's story in his own words, the story of his life as he himself might have narrated to a grandchild. Mahatma Gandhi and management may seem two separate things, but this lecture by the end of it would tell you that they are one and the same. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi represents the best of management and leadership one can never understand or one can never read about or listen about. Mahatma Gandhi said that 7 sinful things will destroy people and society. All of these have to do with social, economic, and political conditions and culture. Each of these deadly sins, according to Gandhi, can only be countered by an elevated and humanistic value system based on trusteeship. The 7 sins to be avoided, as per Gandhi, were wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, religion without sacrifice, and politics without principle. As we think about these statements, we will understand the deep import each of these carry for the world. Mahatma Gandhi's thoughts on serving customers are truly noteworthy. He considered customer as the prime factor for the very existence of any business. I said he was the quintessential leader. Without Mahatma Gandhi, Indian independence would probably have been much more challenging and much more distant than it had been. There are several actual reasons to support this hypothesis. Without his indomitable will and leadership, the mighty British Empire would not have been forced to accede to Indian independence in an essentially non-violent way in the time frame it happened. Without his unique and doughty campaigns, including the famous Salt March to Dundee, India as a vast nation would not have been able to demonstrate the power of unity in diversity. Without his being a leader of leaders, so many other competent leaders such as Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, Rajendra Prasad, Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, just to name a few, would not have shaped up to take up the mantle post-independence. There are so many competencies and capabilities of Mahatma Gandhi that it would be difficult for anyone, and of course including me, to chronicle them in any order and to render any level of justice. Nevertheless, I will try my best. This lecture gleans very important lessons from his leadership that would have relevance to management and leadership in business and any organized activity or even to individual behavior. 10 lessons are drawn. What I would do is that the lesson arising from Gandhi's life would be first stated. Then I would interpret that for leadership in a business setting or in any administrative setting or even in general life, contemporarily relevant. Mahatma Gandhi personified the concept of leading by example. That is his first instructive lesson. Leadership by example. His thoughts, expressions, and deeds were clearly and completely aligned. First of all, simplicity. If Gandhiji preached simplicity, he exemplified it by adopting simple living, including wearing a hand-woven half-dress that identified him with the poorest of poor. Non-violence. He organized all his non-violent protests, including satyagrahas, protests through fasts, that is, by being in the front rather than exhorting from behind. And he epitomized sacrifice. In terms of personal possessions, he had the barest of the minimum, forsaking all his wealth for the good of the community. Thoughts, expressions, and actions were completely aligned in respect of Mahatma Gandhi, setting an outstanding example. Mahatma Gandhi emphasized effective time and resource management, spinning cloth by hand, whether in his ashram or in prison. He wasted no time at all. Lesson 1, therefore, for leaders is the leadership by example lesson. Such extraordinary simplicity, as reflected by Mahatma Gandhi, may not be every leader's want in today's times, but certainly the essence of Gandhi's leading by example can be integrated in terms of the following principles. We have seen all through the lectures that there are always transformational needs for businesses, and we need to have something which is exemplary to be able to achieve those transformational needs. Eschewing extravagance, reflecting authenticity, demonstrating transparency, personifying genuineness, aligning thoughts, expressions, and actions, and leading by example are some of the ways by which even today leadership can set an outstanding example for the followers. Walking the talk and leading by example are the pivots of effective leadership dynamics in any organizational setting. Gandhi's leadership by thematic campaigns. That is the second facet of Gandhi's leadership. The early 1900s had none of the communication tools that the world has today. Yet, Gandhi could galvanize India, the very large nation of multiple languages and cultures, onto one single platform. He captured the imagination of several 100 million people by enunciating, practicing, and leading thematic campaigns. Let's see what those thematic campaigns were. Khadi, hand-woven cotton dress, as a mark of social and economic self-reliance. Satyagraha, fasting, as a symbol of self-sacrifice, self-denial, and self-purification. Salt March, to protest the imposition of tax by the British on salt, the most common food ingredient. Non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, Quit India movement. Mahatma Gandhi's non-violent movements that finally culminated in the great national Indian independence movement reflect a thematic acumen to rally a nation of several million people around. So, what is the lesson for the leaders? Lesson number 2, leadership by thematic campaigns. Whether people belong to small teams or large organizations, thematic campaigns are required to galvanize people of multiple predispositions into one unified thought and execution process. Some typical themes which corporate leaders could execute are: become the highest quality producer, seek perfect innovation in products and services, ensure the highest degree of ethics and compliance, offer the best consumer experience, protect safety, health, and environment of not merely the employees but all the stakeholders, promote sustainability in all operations. These themes are especially relevant when the organizations have to undergo major transformations, be they of growth, be they of technology, be they of turnaround, be they of talent. And it is important for leaders to organize a thematic campaign to galvanize the entire organization onto one single theme. Leaders faced with challenges of turnaround and growth, as well as leaders in pursuit of competitiveness through safety, quality, and efficiency, and several other aspects, need such thematic drivers. And Gandhi achieved it several years ago. Gandhi's leadership by persistence. Gandhi was the ultimate epitome of persistence, tenacity, endurance, commitment, and conviction. He never gave up on anything, particularly on anything where he believed the truth was on that side. It is also instructive that all the causes which brought forth such exceptional behavior from him are those that required tremendous discipline and sacrifice. This makes his persistence highly distinctive. Some events and instances are as follows: facing hostile white mobs in Durban, South Africa, traveling bare-chested to the coldest of the places like London, conforming to strict vegetarianism even on foreign shores, walking hundreds of miles day in and day out for independence movement, fasting for days together or accepting incarceration with selflessness. Mahatma Gandhi believed in the causes he expounded and overcame all daunting obstacles resolutely. He was unswerving in his commitment and unwavering in his conviction. Lesson 3 for leaders, therefore, is as follows: you must follow leadership by persistence. In civil life or business life, success is not easy. It needs persistence, which by itself has many parts. The qualities which fired Gandhi's indomitable spirit are very much a requirement of leadership. Persistence comes from tenacity, endurance, commitment, and conviction. Conviction in the course and cause of core leadership is the fundamental driver of the other 4 qualities of persistence, tenacity, endurance, and commitment. Each strengthen the other. A leader to be recognized as a genuine and authentic leader who can be trustworthy, who can be trusted, would be known by persistence of cause and action, of course. The next facet of Gandhi's leadership is by organization. Despite his extraordinary capabilities and qualities, Gandhi never considered the movement for Indian independence as his one person initiative or endeavor. He aligned the Congress party and its machinery as the organizational vehicle for driving India's independence movement. In 1921, he became a senior Congress functionary. He created a structure that was aligned with the objectives. More importantly, he displayed the statesmanship and stewardship to lead a team of exceptional leaders of high caliber in their own right: Jawaharlal Nehru, Rajaji, Jinnah, Gokhale, Sardar Patel, Babu Rajendra Prasad, and Baba Ambedkar, to name a few. Lesson number 4 for leaders stems from that. Leadership should be by organization. Successful social or business leadership requires building and development of a world-class organization with a structure that is aligned to strategy and vision, and a highly qualified and experienced leadership team. If we want world-class competitiveness, we need structure, we need strategy, we need vision, of course, and team. So the 4 components of this leadership by organization for contemporary leaders, stemming from Gandhi's excellence in that, is as follows. Structure must be aligned to strategy and vision. There must be a qualified and experienced team. The organization should be committed and passionate when it is bound together by the talent, and there must be the right balance of alignment and creativity. A leader's responsibility lies in developing the right balance of alignment, creativity, and synergy amongst a group of competent and passionate leaders. The 5th facet of Gandhi's leadership is by service. Gandhi exemplified servant leadership long before it became a part of management lexicon. Gandhi saw himself as a servant of the Indian people, particularly of the poor and downtrodden. As a servant leader, he was an extraordinary leader of people, but made every effort to find oneness with ordinary people. His sterling personal qualities were innumerable and brought the service dimension clearly into the open. These qualities made him a role model of servant leadership: humaneness, humility, integrity, accountability, honesty, accessibility, equality, equity, morality, spirituality, trusteeship, mentoring and empowerment, and even vulnerability to human failings were all part of his personality and endeared him to the ordinary people as one of them, but with significant ability to lead every one of them. Mahatma Gandhi's espousal of independence on behalf of the people, his campaign for eradication of untouchability, and his readiness to serve the plague deceased and war injured despite all the attendant risks, are enduring evidences of his servant leadership. And arising from that, we have lesson number 5 for leaders, that is leadership by service. Business and organization leaders are, in a sense, servants of all the stakeholders, including but not limited to customers, investors, employees, and the larger society. Business leadership must see metrics of organizational performance in a perspective of trusteeship for the greater good of the society. The firm is generally thought to be the center of the industry. The industry is thought to be the part of the economy, and the economy part of the society, and the society the part of the nation. But actually, if you have to look at the true way of the need to look at things, we must see the nation at the center and core of everything, and then the society, and finally the firm. The firm has to take an outside-in view of how it needs to serve the society and the nation. By serving the society and then the nation, the firm would prove itself as worthy of being on the soil of the nation. And by making the firm do that, or by leading the organization to do that, the leader also would prove himself or herself to be worthy of the leadership responsibility which he or she has taken upon himself or herself. So business performance and wealth creation for the stakeholders is one part. Corporate trusteeship for the greater socio-economic good is the other part, and both must be treated as the two sides of the same leadership coin. In some businesses, such as healthcare, the linkage could be obvious, but even in other industries, the service dimension is appreciated and acted upon by true servant leaders, leading to superior performance. The next lesson from Gandhiji is leadership by customer centricity. Long before customer centricity became a buzzword in marketing and management, Gandhi made a highly profound statement on customers as the core of any business. Gandhi stated, "A customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us, we are dependent on him. He is not an interruption in our work, he is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider in our business, he is part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He is doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do so." Considering customers in the perspective that Gandhi has enunciated is a logical extension of his service leadership, but it is also the very foundation of the modern business as we know. Over a period of time, the modern business has got, I would say, somewhat derailed or may even be looked at as being corrupted by various concepts that we should skim the market, we should skim the various segments, we should advertise and make our customers buy our products, we should switch loyalty, and so many other concepts have come into the marketing jargon as well as in the marketing practice. But we must not forget the main purpose of marketing. In fact, the main purpose for the existence of any organization is worth therefore repeating. A customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He is not an interruption in our work. He is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider in our business. He is part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He is doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do so. So the concepts which we highlight these days of co-creating the experience or co-creating value are going to pale in significance when we look at the deep import of the sentences he framed on customers. So the lesson number 6 for leaders arising from this is leadership by customer centricity. Business leaders must consider whether concepts of market leadership and customer loyalty are the right concepts to feel comfortable in the context of the above perspective. Trying to win over the customers, trying to win over other companies and then take the customers away could be good in business warfare context, but they are not good in terms of real customer service. Business leaders need to focus genuinely on customer needs and experiences. So we have 3 steps in that. Customer service, which we try to do in several organizations. Ensuring customer satisfaction, we at times call it delighting the customer. And then the one which we really need to do is to treat the customer as the king. And for that, as we start creating value along with the customer, we should not lose the locus of customer experience being the primary driver. We should move away from a transactional relationship between firm and the market to a highly personalized, respectful relationship between the individual of the firm, that is the leader serving the customer, and the customer as the very purpose of the existence of the business and therefore of the leadership. The paradigm of marketing should be more than fulfillment of customer orders or customer demand. It should be in terms of lifelong customer satisfaction. Gandhi's leadership by self-reliance is another important facet of his leadership. Although the word Swaraj means self-rule, Gandhi gave it the content of an integral social revolution that encompasses all spheres of life. Swaraj connotes our governance, that is our Raj, that is our kingdom. At the individual level, Swaraj is vitally connected with the capacity for dispassionate self-assessment, ceaseless self-purification, and growing self-reliance. Then comes self-government. Politically, Swaraj is self-government, and it means a continuous effort to be independent of government control, whether it is foreign government or whether it is national. Self-government is one of his fundamental contributions for governance of a country. People sovereignty is his third concept. In other words, people sovereignty is the sovereignty of the people based on pure moral authority. Economically, Swaraj means full economic freedom for the toiling millions. Resurrecting handlooms and promoting self reliance, the Swaraj Way was one of his greatest contributions. Mahatma Gandhi's Khadi movement with the charkha, that is the spinning wheel, emerging as the symbol of economic power in the hands of individuals, and the passionate espousal of small and micro enterprises and rural employment are sterling examples of his belief in economic self reliance. By demonstrating the ability to weave textiles through the spinning wheel, Mahatma Gandhi illustrated how we can build our own life, how we can have our own livelihood, and that was the biggest lesson which he has given to the society and the nation at large. Arising from this, we have lesson number 7 for leaders, that is leadership by Swaraj. Indian business may consider somewhat erroneously that in today's globalized world, self reliance is a somewhat dated concept. We fashionably think that this is a networked world, therefore, everybody needs to be dependent on everybody else, and there's nothing wrong in importing a few things and trying to export a few more things. However, we should not lose sight of the very importance of self reliance in this process. Atmanirbhar, which Modi ji has brought out again in these days, or self reliance, is a concept that will ensure economic independence for India, because political independence has no meaning without economic independence. Gandhi and Swaraj had the following 6 concepts: 1. Self rule, 2. Cottage industries, 3. Public sector, 4. Dams and power plants, 5. Institutes of national importance, and villages as the core. Self reliance, of course, took a socialistic hue under Pandit Nehru, independent India's first Prime Minister, who brought in command and control economy, limiting private enterprise. Sardar Patel, the Home Minister, known as the Iron Man of India, ensured national integration. So, these two exemplary leaders who were shaped by Mahatma Gandhi ensured that many of the capabilities of Atmanirbhar were laid in the foundations of independent India. But of course, at that point of time, more needed to be done, and less of command and control type of economy, but more of private enterprise empowerment for growth would have led to even more impactful growth for the Indian economy. Distortions in execution reduced the potential of Gandhi and Swaraj. While India did win its independence, economic independence became a bit elusive. Gandhian economics in a contemporary format is certainly called for as nations turn protectionist. So we need to look at this concept of leadership by Swaraj a little more deeply as far as the industry is concerned. We may think of these as being related to administration of the nation. But let's look at it this way. What is self-rule? It is self-administration. This is something similar to self-managed teams, which I talked about when I was tracing the leadership of Dr. Kala Manchireddy, who was the head of Dr. Reddy's. So, ability to rule by ourselves is the sine qua non of the highest level of empowerment and accountability that is possible. So, the Panchayat Raj, which he might have advocated, which is grassroots leadership by the smallest possible levels of administrative subunits, is reflective of his approach. But at the corporate level, the ability of a department or a subunit of the department to be able to administer itself is a quantification of the self-rule mechanism. And leaders have something to be inspired about in this respect from Gandhi and Swaraj. Similarly, the emphasis on cottage industries. Today we talk about micro and small enterprises. But decades ago, Gandhiji talked about cottage industries. And even today, we need to find out modern methods of running the cottage industries. That is, where the skill levels, the craftsmanship are protected, but things are made more worker friendly, more quality oriented, and more design oriented. So cottage industries could continue to exist, but in a more modern format. And that, coupled with villages as the core, could lead us to an entirely new spectrum of agri products, food products, crafts based products, and so on. The linkage between the villages and the urban habitats would take place when we look at both the micro and small industries as well as the villages in one go as part of the industrial Swaraj. Then public sector. The way the public sector organizations have done immense service to India's economy by really occupying the commanding heights of economy, be it oil and gas, oil refining, shipbuilding, capital goods, and so many others, is really something praiseworthy. And for that, the credit has to go to the planning commissions of the past and the previous leaderships, notwithstanding the socialistic controls on the private sector, which limited the ability of the private sector to grow in a similar fashion. The dams and power plants, they gave the country the Swaraj, the economic Swaraj, to be able to store water, feed the agriculture with water, and also provide the energy for industrial and agricultural activities. The institutes of national importance, the Indian Institutes of Technology, the National Institutes of Technology, and the Indian Institute of Management, and several other institutes, even if they are not called institutes of national importance, are so significant in the talent development of the nation, and the developed talent of the nation has provided Swaraj for the country. So whichever way you look at it, Gandhian Swaraj, which was rooted in self-rule, cottage industries, public sector, dams and power plants, institutes of national importance, and villages as the core, was a multifaceted paradigm to be adopted by the industrial leaders. The next facet was Gandhi's leadership by people. Gandhiji believed that the real power directly resides in the hands of the people. He said, power resides in the people. They can use it at any time. For him, individual was the core. Gandhi's philosophy rests inside an individual who learns to be the master of his or her own self and spreads upwards to the level of his or her community, which must be dependent only on itself. He felt always the change must come from the individual and not from outside the individual. The individual changes himself or herself, and along with the change, the individual changes the society. His messages, therefore, were all aimed at individuals. Even if the individuals were in millions, he addressed the message individually so that the individuals could be galvanized into a society of change. He also emphasized similarly individual self-governance. Gandhi said, in such a state, everyone is his own ruler. He rules himself in such a manner that he is never a hindrance to his neighbor. That is, the individual knows his responsibility, knows his accountability, he is disciplined enough, he follows certain values, and therefore his self-governance as an individual will lead to the self-governance as a society as well. And whatever he said in terms of leadership by people was easily implementable. While Gandhi was a great leader, he articulated that his leadership was based on factors that even ordinary men and women could implement. He made a very profound statement. Gandhiji stated that by putting in the same effort and attention as he has put in, any person could achieve all that he could achieve. See the humility, but at the same time the sagacity in what he said. He said that if only every individual works with the same amount of effort and with the same amount of dedication and the same amount of perseverance, the results which are as astounding as the ones which are achieved by Gandhiji would be achieved by such individuals. While it reflects his humility, it also reflects his belief in the capability and power of the people. And arising from this, we have the 8th lesson for leaders, which is leadership by people. Leaders need to retain the empowerment with the people at all times. The more power is concentrated in a leader, the less successful will be his or her organization. I have emphasized enough in my lectures that the leader must have the ability to connect with everyone in the organization. The leader must have the ability to reach up to every individual in the organization and also provide the facility as well as the felicity for every individual to reach up to him. We talked about J.R.D. Tata, who made that possible to a great extent. I talked about the connected leadership. I talked about the law of large numbers. I talked about the need to cut through the bureaucracy and the departmental silos and have a system or have a practice by which the leader mingles freely with the rest of the organization by whatever means that is be possible. And decades ago, Gandhiji told us this lesson that leaders need to retain the empowerment with the people at all times, and that was evident from Gandhi's connectivity with every individual, particularly in those years when there was absolutely no way of connecting except through physical talk, and there were no newspapers, no digital media as we have today to connect people. And again, this statement that the more power is concentrated in a leader, the less successful will be his or her organization. So, trying to manage an entire organization through just a senior leadership team or a handful of trusted people is not the answer for leadership by people. Of course, we have to realize that grassroots leadership does come with certain caveats. Decentralization and empowerment must come with accountability. And when he motivated the individuals, he motivated them not merely to listen to him but also to participate in the sacrificing movements that he has pronounced and for which he was a part of. So, if he had to be the forsaking of the foreign goods, he encouraged the people to demonstrate their empowerment as well as accountability by participating in this process. It never stopped with preaching. Empowerment also does not mean laissez-faire for all people of an organization. He wanted empowered discipline or disciplined empowerment. He didn't want the independence movement to go awry or to get derailed with any kind of unruly approach. He always wanted discipline, even as he protested against the foreign rule. Similarly, empowerment at grassroots level must also come with discipline and orderly behavior. These caveats the leader must be able to impose in a very subtle way, even as the leader is connecting with all the people in the organization. The key emphasis must not only be on decentralization and empowerment, but also on accountability to dedicate the same effort and accord the same attention as the leader himself or herself would put in. That would be the true embodiment of grassroots leadership. The ninth facet of Gandhiji's leadership is universality. Gandhiji studied and lived abroad. He saw and rebelled against apartheid. He traveled abroad in the face of misplaced strife against him and defying the power of a world empire too. He believed in equality and equity. As a global citizen, Gandhi had three important facets. In doing so, Gandhi discovered his ethical traits, honed his personality, and developed his tools of leadership. He baptized himself through fire of development as he went through all his life experiences. He preached and followed Hinduism as a devout Hindu, but equally understood and respected other religions, including Christianity and Islam. He firmly believed in the universality and coexistence of multiple cultures and religions. Gandhi's viewpoints no doubt established the foundations of a secular, independent India. Gandhi's secularism was marked by inclusive love for all without setting aside his Hindu credentials. And what does it have as a lesson for the leader? Lesson number 9, arising from the facet we discussed for leaders, is leadership by universality. In today's globalized world, characterized by multinational corporations of diverse national origins, it is tempting for leaders or team members and headquarters or regions to make fallacious and simplistic assumptions on competencies and attributes of others through the prisms of individual cultures. It is not that only multinationals which are headquartered in the United States or Europe or Japan look at other countries and other country operations in their native prisms. Even Indian multinationals which are headquartered in India tend to do the same. So it is important to realize for companies and leaders that there are three particular aspects of universal leadership. One, understanding of the cultural diversity, and the cultures are diverse nationally. Understand the importance of competencies. You have defining competences in each culture, but also we need to develop a universal competency, particularly when we think of the firm as one firm. And finally, by merging all of that in terms of the universality of competence, we develop global leadership. So, leadership by universality is a function of all of these things: cultures, competencies, and the global leadership. The moment leaders and individuals start appreciating the universality of competence, true global leadership emerges. And leadership is a continuous discovery of what is and what can be good for the organizations as well as the global societies they serve. Lesson number 10, which is again one of the most important, is the leadership by engagement. Gandhi could galvanize the people by engagement. Even in those days of manual and physical communication, the huge distances that separate habitats, and lack of transportation, Gandhi never was tired of engaging with people. Gandhi's personal meetings with people who called on him were short and concise but pointed and effective. He very much knew the value of time. He also knew how to deliver an effective message in the shortest possible time while listening to the message which the people wanted to give him. He provided all the attention, listened well, and made all his visitors feel really important and cared for in his brief personal meetings. When he addressed public gatherings, he always had his finger on the pulse of the people. With his sublime personal traits, exemplified and personified by his ethical and honest conduct on the one hand, and the inspiring thematic connectors such as Satya, the truth, Swaraj, self rule, Satyagraha, people protest through fasting, and Ahimsa, non-violence, Gandhi always engaged with the millions of Indians, rich or poor, effectively and very impactfully. Lesson number 10 arising from that for leaders is leadership by universality. When I say universality here, it is universal connectivity. Leadership's greatest trap and fallibility is the distance that develops between leaders and the larger population. And the distancing develops not only with the broader organization but even with the other leaders. I talked about these aspects in the leadership mistakes that could happen. I also talked about these issues in the leadership philosophies. So, the distancing that comes through to the development of organization in pursuit of scale must be cut off and connectivity developed. Second, separators would be there between the leaders and the followers. There would be interlocutors, there would be intermediaries, and there would be also self separation. I talked about decoupling from the peers. Self separation could be either due to fear, reverence, and it could be from the leader's point of view or from the people's point of view. The separation could be done by the people themselves out of either fear or out of reverence. So it is important for leaders to stay in touch and make the people feel connected genuinely. Gandhi's collaborative working illustrates how leaders must avoid distancing and separation between leaders and others. Inclusive leadership is what leaders must absorb from Gandhi's leadership. So, when we summarize all of these aspects, Mahatma Gandhi's leadership model would be seen as one great integrative leadership model. He has been truly an exceptionally great leader. His achievements have been spectacular in the political and national arena. Not limited to his being the father of the Indian independence, the principles of humanism and leadership he espoused and embodied transcend all domains and all eras. To summarize, his leadership principles were leadership by example, leadership by thematic campaigns, leadership by persistence, leadership by organization, leadership by service, leadership by customers, leadership by self-reliance, leadership by people, leadership by universality, and leadership by engagement. As I have illustrated in terms of extrapolation and interpretation in terms of contemporary business and organizational as well as leadership needs, each of these principles can be very effectively put in practice by leaders. As part of this lecture, the ability to institutionalize these principles as part of the leadership character and as part of the leadership practice is fundamental for a leader to get recognized as an authentic, genuine, and highly competent leader. And every leadership that is considered authentic, purposeful, purposive, trustworthy would also display these principles. And these principles have come about by witnessing, by understanding, by reading about, and by interpreting Mahatma Gandhi's leadership of not merely the great Indian independence movement, but also his interactions with the various leaders that participated in the Indian independence movement. Compared to what Mahatma Gandhi had in terms of the entire national canvas and the international stakeholders with whom he needed to discuss, and the countless distractors and skeptics who needed to win over, and the countless adversaries with whom he had to negotiate, convince, and finally achieve superiority over them. The leaders of today's firms have much limited canvas and many other modern digital tools, many other management tools, and many other analytical tools to be able to carry out their capabilities. But none of this would equal the strengths of personality that a leader must have. And that's what Mahatma Gandhi's leadership model teaches us, to be able to lead by example, by setting an example from the persona. Leadership by thematic campaigns. Be convinced about what the leader is wanting to say, whether it is the highest quality or the highest environmental compliance, whether the transformational need is urgent and how it must be executed. All of these things are thematic campaigns which the leader must demonstrate to the larger body of the organization. Being undaunted by the hurdles and being passionate about and persistent about the cause, that is leadership by persistence. And having a good, great organization, well structured with flexibility and having talent of great capability, leadership by organization. Leadership by service, trying to serve everybody in the organization through servant leadership so that they are feeling strengthened and nurtured, that is leadership by service. Total customer centricity, considering each customer as the very purpose of the organization, creating experiences with him and for him, that is leadership by customers. And Atmanirbhar, or leadership by self-reliance, ability to do everything, the Swaraj of the industry, through going to the roots of industrial development, be it the micro and small enterprises or the large enterprises, be it the villages or the large urban habitats. Ability to have self-reliance in every facet of industrial and economic activity. And leadership by people, that is being people oriented at all times and in all ways. Leadership by universality, that is the ability to connect with each and everyone in the stakeholder universe. And finally, leadership by engagement, to be one with the people, to be one for the people, and to be one among the people. That's the leadership by engagement. Mahatma Gandhi's 10 leadership principles call upon the leaders to show personal leadership examples in all of these 10 areas and earn leadership mantle by thought, deed, and action, and not by just preaching prescription or even by patience. You have to do things by yourself without losing a moment of your time, and that's what leadership is. The 10 facets of Mahatma Gandhi's leadership model brought out in this lecture are applicable to organizational leadership, whether business or administrative, and whether for profit or not for profit. These 10 principles together constitute a holistic model of humanistic leadership which would be very effective. Mahatma Gandhi is an eternally relevant leadership legend. Mahatma Gandhi's leadership model remains as relevant today as it was during his lifetime. It would continue to be applicable at all the times in future and in all cultures and nations in a fundamental manner. At the core of that is the humanistic leadership. As with any model, Gandhi's humanistic leadership model needs to be absorbed and implemented contextually and with wholehearted conviction. And it is for all people. It is a model not merely for leaders, current and prospective, but also for all people at large. It will be useful to remember at all times Gandhiji's statement about effort and dedication. He believed that even ordinary persons would achieve the same results and impact if they would exert the same effort and attention as Gandhi himself has dedicated for human welfare and development. With dedication and effort, people can bring in extraordinary results. leaders can get extraordinary results from their people and from their organizations if they put in the same effort and attention as Gandhi himself has dedicated for every activity, for every cause, for every thought, for every movement, and for every transformation. This brings us to one of Mahatma Gandhi's profound expressions: be the change that you wish to see in the world. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. That is one of his most profound statements ever, and it would continue to be relevant as we try to seek growth, as we try to seek socio-economic purpose, as we try to seek welfare for all in our leadership quest. Thank you. It is my privilege that I have been able to share some aspects of Mahatma Gandhi's life and glean some leadership lessons which could be used as the capstone lecture for this exciting and interesting course on Leadership for India Inc. The forthcoming lecture will be the final lecture, wherein I would take a review, a broad one at that, of the course that I could deliver to you, and the several high points which we could go through, and it would be impossible again to review all the high points in one lecture, but I would try to bring some salient points for your recap and attention. And I do hope that this course would have provided the kind of deliverables which I anticipated when I started the coursework. Let's review those aspects in the forthcoming course. Thank you very much.